The 15th of March, 1939, Prague, Czechoslovakia. From early morning, people stand in the streets and on the pavements, watching in stunned silence as German troops march into the city. Some stare openly, others whisper anxiously, as armored vehicles roll across the cobblestones and soldiers take positions at bridges, ministries, and railway stations. Crowds also gather in Wenceslas Square and along the roads leading up to Prague Castle, where the symbols of a sovereign state of Czechoslovakia are quietly removed. By afternoon, the swastika flies above the city, and the capital of Czechoslovakia has fallen without a single battle. Fear settles over the city as arrests begin and Jewish families understand that their property, as well as their lives, are no longer protected. In the days that follow, the castle and the confiscated estates surrounding Prague become seats of a new power that rules through executions, mass arrests, and calculated terror. During the Second World War, which is swiftly approaching, one of the most ruthless men of the regime will take control of the protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia. His brutality will earn him the name Butcher of Prague, as he will send thousands of people to their deaths and prisons. Beside him will stand a woman who shares his inhuman beliefs, embraces the privileges of conquest, and settles into a castle taken from its Jewish owner, benefiting directly from the repression that spreads across the protectorate. Her name is Lina Heydrich. Lina Heydrich was born as Lina Mathilde von Osten on the 14th of June 1911 on the island of Fehmarn in the Baltic Sea, then part of the German Empire. Her father, Jürgen von Osten, was an impoverished aristocrat who worked as a village schoolteacher. Her mother, Mathilde, came from a business family and managed the household. Lina grew up in an environment shaped by German defeat in the First World War, resentment against the Weimar Republic that emerged after the fall of the German Empire in 1918, and hostility toward Jews and the political left. Lina absorbed these ideas early, and she became a passionate anti-Semite while still a teenager. After graduating from school in Oldenburg in 1927, she began training as a trade teacher in the port city of Kiel in 1928. Her life changed on the 6th of December 1930 at a rowing club ball in Kiel. There, she met a naval officer, Reinhard Heydrich. He was ambitious, intelligent, and socially confident. Within less than 2 weeks, on the 18th of December 1930, they announced their engagement. At that time, Heydrich had already promised marriage to another woman, the daughter of a senior naval officer, but he broke this promise to be with Lina. This led to a scandal, and in April 1931, a military court of honor forced Heydrich to resign from the German Navy for dishonoring the officer corps. This devastated him, as his career appeared to be ruined. But Lina reacted differently. She saw opportunity in this crisis. At the same time, she already supported the Nazi Party and encouraged Heydrich to join the party and its elite paramilitary formation, the SS. In June and July 1931, Reinhard Heydrich joined the Nazi Party and the SS. Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, was searching for capable men to build an internal intelligence service, and Heydrich was introduced to him in August 1931. The recommendation was based on the wrong assessment that Heydrich had intelligence experience from his time in the Navy. Himmler was at the end impressed by him and hired him. At the end of this important year for Heydrich, on the 26th of December 1931, he married Lina, and in the following years they had 4 children together: Klaus, Heide, Silke, and Marthe. Heydrich quickly proved his ability to Himmler. He created and expanded the Sicherheitsdienst, the SD, the intelligence organ of the Nazi Party. By January 1933, when Adolf Hitler became Chancellor, the SD was already a powerful tool of repression. Lina followed these developments of her husband with pride. In letters to her parents, she described arrests of political opponents and Jews with enthusiasm, and portrayed violence by the SA and SS as justified revenge. After Hitler consolidated power in 1933, repression intensified, and Heydrich became an important player in the Nazi movement. In 1936, he was put in charge of the Zippo, the security police, which united the Gestapo, the secret state police, and the criminal police into one centralized structure. This made Heydrich one of the most powerful figures in the general administration of Nazi Germany. Lina enjoyed the privileges that came with this power. She embraced an expensive lifestyle and social status that her parents could never have imagined. While she enjoyed luxury, her husband participated in the crimes of Nazi Germany. One of them was the Kristallnacht pogrom of the 9th to 10th of November 1938, when orchestrated violence against Jews erupted across Germany and annexed Austria. In this planned pogrom, known also as the Night of Broken Glass, Heydrich played a crucial role, and Lina actively supported him and encouraged him to act even more brutally. Both Reinhard and Lina had several affairs. Because Reinhard Heydrich's duties required long working hours and frequent absences from home, Lina would later recall, "I was married to Reinhard Heydrich for 10 years. He was not home for 7 of those years." The turning point came on the 1st of September 1939, when Nazi Germany invaded Poland and the Second World War began. Occupied territories by Nazi Germany became laboratories of racial policy, and German security services expanded their reach and power. Reinhard Heydrich played a leading role in coordinating measures against Jews, resistance fighters, and political opponents across occupied Europe. He organized and chaired the infamous Wannsee Conference in January 1942, where leading German officials coordinated the implementation of the final solution of the Jewish question, meaning the systematic and physical murder of European Jews. Before the Wannsee Conference in September 1941, after Adolf Hitler dismissed Reich Protector Konstantin von Neurath, Reinhard Heydrich was appointed Deputy Reich Protector of Bohemia and Moravia. This position placed him at the top of the power hierarchy in the Protectorate. For Lina, this was social triumph. The family first resided in Prague Castle, the ancient seat of Czech kings, and then moved to the confiscated castle of Panenské Břežany near Prague. The estate had belonged to the Jewish industrialist Ferdinand Bloch-Bauer and had been seized after the German occupation. At Panenské Břežany, Lina felt she had reached her rightful status. She later wrote that she was a princess living in a fairy tale land. The castle became a symbol of both privilege and repression. While she enjoyed receptions, gardens, and luxury, her husband ordered executions and mass arrests. Special courts sentenced hundreds to death in the first months of his rule. Thousands were handed over to the Gestapo, and Heydrich earned the nickname the Butcher of Prague. Heydrich believed his repression had pacified the country and destroyed the Czechoslovak resistance, but he was wrong. On the 27th of May, 1942, he was gravely wounded during the attack done by 2 Czechoslovak soldiers sent from Great Britain, Jozef Gabčík and Jan Kubiš. Heydrich died of infection on the 4th of June 1942, and his death triggered another round of brutal reprisals in the Protectorate. A lot changed after the death of Lina's husband. Lina, pregnant at the time, did not attend the funeral of her husband, and in July 1942, she gave birth to their 4th child, Marte. Adolf Hitler granted her ownership of Panenské Břežany and secured a generous lifetime pension. She became a wealthy widow of a man considered a hero within the Nazi regime, in reality a mass murderer. She soon transformed the estate according to her wishes. A playground and swimming pool were built, and Lina decided to destroy the English park with its rare trees. She sold the wood and planted potatoes and other vegetables there, which she then sold to the German troops in Prague. In order to run her business, she needed workers, and in the castle grounds she set up a miniature labor and concentration camp, where around 150 prisoners from the Theresienstadt ghetto lived in former stables and worked for Lina Heydrich under miserable conditions. Witnesses later testified that Lina insulted, spat on, and physically abused Jewish forced laborers. She reportedly observed them through binoculars and ordered punishments for those who worked too slowly. When this labor force was withdrawn in February 1944, she obtained 15 Jehovah's Witnesses from the Flossenburg concentration camp. Even payment for these prisoners to the administration of the concentration camp became a dispute, and eventually Himmler himself covered the costs from his own account. The death of her husband, however, was not the only loss Lina suffered during her stay in the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia. In an ironic twist of fate, Heydrich's son Klaus died on the 24th of October 1943. This was exactly 1 year after the Germans murdered the supporters of the Anthropoid group, which had killed Heydrich, along with their families in the Mauthausen concentration camp in Austria. The 10-year-old Klaus rode out onto the street, where he was struck by a truck coming down the road and was almost immediately dead. Jewish prisoners initially dug his grave, but Lina decided that her Aryan child should not be buried in a grave prepared by Jews. German soldiers dug a new grave. She even demanded that Karel Kaspar, the driver involved in the accident, be shot, but an investigation found him not guilty, so he was not executed. In April 1945, as Soviet forces approached, Lina fled with her children. Before leaving, she shook hands with staff and promised pensions, convinced she would return to the castle, but she never did. She also had rabbits, geese, and chickens slaughtered, and took jars of preserved meat with her. After the war, the Czechoslovak court sentenced her in absentia to life imprisonment in 1948. In Germany, she hid for a few years, fearing extradition, but at the end she was, despite her crimes, never handed over to Czechoslovakia. Later, she repeatedly applied for a general's pension, although her husband was considered a war criminal rather than a soldier. Eventually, she received a widow's pension. In 1965, she married Finnish theatre director Mauno Manninen, partly to change her surname. She operated her former summer house on the German island of Fehmarn as a restaurant and inn. Many visitors were former supporters of the Nazi regime who remembered the past with nostalgia. When Lina Heydrich died on the 14th of August 1985 in Fehmarn, she was 74 years old. She showed no remorse to the victims of Nazism. In 1979, 6 years before her death, she said, "National Socialism was a faith, and I can never renounce this faith."
Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.